Hello everybody, Jan Paul here with Jan Paul's Woodshed. I'm here today to talk about our deluxe model turkey call. It's made two-part, comes with a lid that's attached with a magnet, and you got two magnets, so it snaps in place, stays there nice and snug. They're usually made with highly figured walnuts or maples, things like that. And this has the standard sound holes in it, and has a really great sound. Has slate over glass in this particular model here. I also have aluminum and copper, some other choices, glass, beaded glass as well. It's made, here's another one that I've started on, haven't finished out or sanded, but you can see the inside is CNC machined, as is the outside, and of both sides of these parts. And what I do is I turn them on the CNC machine, and then I hand finish all of these surfaces down to just an amazing shine, and then do a tongue oil and wipe on poly finish. So I'm gonna basically take you through that process today and give you insight on how I fixture it, and what I go through in the sanding process, the finishing process, and just kind of give you the inside and out of how I do it. It's kind of a unique fixture in that I clamp it from the side. So you'll see that. What I'm going to do is go through that, fast forwarding through the production side of it. It just gets long and tedious. There's at least an hour of machining and a couple hours of sanding and finishing. So we're going to speed that up, and I'll talk over it as we go. So we'll see how that goes. I'm using new software. It's called Camtasia. I did this video earlier with my with a video camera that wasn't made in this century, so it didn't come out that great. It was a little jerky in the production side of it. So we're redoing it, and this is take two of video 2, the deluxe production. So what I'm doing here, doing the cutting of the rough stock, and chop saw on the band saw, and now I split it for the body. Body's about 1 inch thick when I start, and I mark the inside there so I can orient the lid and make sure I get the faces matching whenever I machine the parts. You can see in the fixture I've got, I'll do one at a time, but I match them up so the grain all comes together and looks correct whenever I get it all put together. What I just did there is just honed the machine, and then I set the Z height and the location of the fixture. Now I can again adjust for the top of the wood, and then I face the block, get a good nice smooth surface to start with. And here I get a little better shot now. I'm coming in and roughing out the inside of the pot with a 1/2 inch end mill. Take a few passes, kind of minimize the chip out. One of these days I'm going to make a little vacuum clamp and get a dust collection system. When I go big time. Now I'm doing the outside of the part. I go fairly slow on this, slow it down quite a bit, again to minimize chip out. The walnut doesn't seem to have that much of a problem, but I do have issues with the hard maple will tend to chip out a little bit more. Now I've switched over to the lid. You can see the mark on the face of the lid. That shows that's the inside, and I mark it with a T. I forget why I actually started marking with T, but it helps me keep it oriented and facing the correct direction. And so I've got it nested in the part design, and kind of looks like a little thing off Star Wars, a little robot. But
It keeps it oriented, and here I'm trimming off the outside of the parts after they come off the CNC. So that's both the insides. Now I'm taking down the outside to the CNC marks, and I'll get them close here, but I don't. I leave a little bit of just a little fuzz to play with. What I'll do is I'll stick these together and actually sand them with them attached. Now they're matched together, and I'll square that edge up to where it's perfectly round, and that's the final shape. And now I flip it over into the next station of the jig and touch off the top. And then I'll remember to change out the bit, touch off the top again, and start my program. And this does the contour top, so it kind of rounds everything over and does it with an oval shape. Get a little better shot of what it's doing. And this will carry on out to the outer edge. With this design, I've got that 3D contour in my program, and I can actually lay objects onto it. I can put in, I've done USMC logos and emblems and Army emblems. I've got sound holes now that are going in, but I can also do custom sound holes if you like something different. I've got some turkey fan design where the fan of the turkey is the sound holes. This design, the 6-hole design, seems to be a much better sounding call than the one with the turkey fan. The other is fairly unique, so you don't see it very anywhere else. And now I'm doing the top side of the lid, doing the same thing, just contouring that over. Usually start with about a 1/2 inch thickness on the lid. I've taken them thinner and then kind of do a step out on the edge of it, just to give some edge thickness. What I fear is that in the future these may warp if they're too thin, so I try to keep them fairly thick. It doesn't add a lot of weight to the call having the lid, but I like the idea of having a lid. Nobody else out there is doing it hardly, and definitely not doing this oval design. So that was all the CNC work there. Now you see I kind of do a quick rough sanding to knock off the CNC marks, and then from that point on it is all handwork. I will say I can probably do the call itself. If I'm doing a number of them together, I could probably knock out the CNC side of each call in less than 40 minutes. The hand sanding and finishing, and basically I'll go through anywhere from, I usually start at like 600 grit paper on some of the surfaces. If it's still fairly rough, I'll take it down to 300, 330, whatever it is, whatever it takes. But I step that all the way up to 1,000 grit, and then once I get it sanded, then I'll apply 2 to 3 coats of tung oil that fills the grain and really gives it a real nice color. I don't stain typically. The number one, the walnut doesn't require it. It just looks beautiful the way it is. There you go. I'm at 600 already. I will do 2 to 3 coats of the tung oil, and the walnuts just popping, and the maple looks fantastic all by itself. I found staining the wall or the maple, I get some uneven color. It just doesn't look good at all. Because I'm using the full block of wood, you're getting ingrain on one side of the call and side grain on the other. So it just one edge will look darker and the other is not, and it to me it's not a real pleasing color. So just on the maple, I will typically just go with the tung oil as well. So I've had some requests to darken up the maple. People like the sound of the maple calls, but they're bright white color, and I haven't had any luck in staining them. But I'm going to try a dye one in a vacuum and see if I can get some color in that way. I've tried a few test blocks on another project, and it seems to work pretty well. What I'm doing here, there with the walnut, sometimes there are some little pits, and especially with the really highly grained, highly figured wood that you see. Up on the left-hand side, there's another one I'm doing that you can see. It's got a little shiny area. That is super glue. So I'll take and fill any voids or any little chips or cracks or anything I see that could potentially be a problem down the road. I'll fill with super glue and sawdust of that same part, so that you cannot tell, and it's probably stronger than it started with. Right now I'm stepping through the sanding. You can see on the flat surfaces, I will go all the way through those different sandpapers, and again I'm catching the inside of the part where before I was working on the outside of the part, and just touching everything up. And what I'm putting on here is a sanding sealer, and that helps keep everything even. Whenever you start with the oil and everything, you won't get and this is kind of final sanding with steel wool. 4/0 steel wool is what I'm working with. You can't tell what I'm doing because I don't have it in frame. I'm going to slap my photographer, which would be me. This, by the way, this video I shot with my phone this time, since it was made in this century. I have a new camera, a Canon M50, which is very well recognized in the vlogging YouTube community, and so my next video I'll start shooting with that. Here I'm starting to work. I'm adding wipe on poly, and it is my go-to finish now, in that it gives you a nice thin coat. I typically do I only show one here, I think, but I do shoot two. Okay, I got at least 3 or 4 on this particular part. I don't like to leave them, and you see the finished part. I don't like to leave them shiny. I will end out finishing it with steel wool, and then you can see how well the magnet works very well there. This one is slate over glass, and has just a fantastic sound. I think I'd really like to thank Roger Benson for helping me out with the design on the sound portion of this, and getting the